What's up, guys? Welcome to the first ever episode of Tug of Words. Today, I have a very special guest with me. I have Jessie Naylor from Last Second Sports. I have Ben Meyerson. I have So Real Suneil, and I have Jack Hammer. So we're gonna be talking some NFL debates, like some NFL debates that you might have with your friends. So let's just jump right into it. Starting off with who is a better running back, Derrick Henry or Christian McCaffrey? Would you like to start,
Nice.
Suneil?
So I appreciate it. First of all, Tug of Words. All right, I'm already feeling that name. I didn't even know that's what I was on, but okay. So we're going Derrick Henry versus Christian McCaffrey. So when I'm giving my analysis, I kind of looked at it from if they were swapped as far as on the team. Like if Derrick Henry went to the Panthers and McCaffrey went to the Titans, do I feel like they'd have the same success? And my answer was no. I truly would go with Derrick Henry for a few reasons. One, I think he's more of that prototypical running back that's needed as far as like being able to move the chains, being able to get tough yards down the middle, as well as control the clock. I think McCaffrey is more of an athlete. He's somebody that could catch the ball out of the backfield. Obviously could run, has good speed, all purpose. But the biggest difference to me is the best abilities availability. And McCaffrey is injured a lot more than Derrick Henry. So for me, I want the guy that could go out and put 2,000 yards rushing or 2,000 all-purpose yards plus and stay healthy for a full season, because that's going to be the guy I could hitch my wagon to and win with on a consistent basis. So I'm going Derrick Henry.
I took a little bit of a different approach, but looking at these two guys, and I kind of agree with what Suneil said there as far as the injury. Because if I'm going pre-injury for McCaffrey, then it's going to be McCaffrey all the way. Because the years before, he was averaging over 136 yards per game. I understand it's not. They're totally different types of running backs, so that's what makes this a fun argument, because you've got the pounding, the guy that's going to ground a pound, and you got the guy who can still run the ball really well, but he's also going to beat you with his hands out of the backfield. McCaffrey is really good, but I'm just not sure what he's going to be now that he's coming off of an injury. That's really rough on running backs, and especially with their explosiveness, which is part of what's always made him so special. So I'm also going to stick with Suneil here, and I'm going to say Derrick Henry as well as the guy that I want to have moving forward.
King Henry.
Hey, so one thing you'll know about Suneil and I when we're on a show together, whatever he says, I'm going to disagree, and vice versa. So I'm going to go with Christian McCaffrey. All right, so for me, Christian McCaffrey, we talk about 2,000 yards. Christian McCaffrey has broken 2,000 all-purpose yards essentially twice in his career. You add in the receiving. I mean, that's something that is unique, right? You've got guys like Kamara who are great receivers, and they're as a running back. You've got guys like Henry that are great running backs, but they're as a receiver. He is great in both. You're talking about a guy who can get 100+ receptions in a season. He can lead the league in receptions, or he could lead the league in rushing yards. Pick your poison. The guy is phenomenal. Yes, the knee injury is worrisome, but I'm going based off of what I've seen so far. I can't predict what he's going to be. So for me, Christian McCaffrey is definitely the guy.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to agree with Suneil and Jack here. To me, I think it's a pretty close argument. I think this is, it's a little bit of, pick your poison with this one. But for me, I think the tiebreaker has to be that injury concern, right? I think you guys covered that pretty well. But to me, if I'm building my team around a running back, I think I would rather build my team around Derrick Henry, because we've seen a team like the Titans be able to build their team around him and succeed in the playoffs with him at a high level. I mean, we saw Kansas City slow them down, of course, but how many teams beat Kansas City in the last few years? So, to me, I got to go with Derrick Henry for that reason. And then with McCaffrey, I worry about that long-term success with him. I guess I want to see his team do really well because of him. I think that's just one thing we haven't quite seen yet from him.
Yep, I gotta go with Derrick Henry mainly because, like Suneil said, the injury concern, right? Derrick Henry has played healthy. His first couple of years in the league, he did struggle, but he picked it up the last couple of years. He had 1,500 yards last year, and he had 2,000 yards this year. So Derrick Henry's just a beast. And like Ben Meyerson, like you said, that Christian McCaffrey, I don't know how in long term. I don't know how well his health is gonna bother him in long term. And Derrick Henry has played at a high consistent level for the last couple of years, and he's been healthy. So I gotta go with Derrick Henry also. Moving on to the next topic, who is a better wide receiver between DeAndre Hopkins and Davante Adams?
Are we just going same rotation?
No, let's throw Ben up. Let's go back.
So to me, for this one, I think right now it's neck and neck between these two guys. Who's better right at this moment? So to me, I looked at this from more of a career perspective, and when I'm going to go from it at that angle, I think I'm going to go with DeAndre Hopkins, just because, like we've seen with Davante Adams, and it's the constant criticism with him. He's only, quote unquote, done it with Aaron Rodgers, right? We've seen DeAndre Hopkins be able to succeed with all different kinds of quarterbacks at all different kinds of levels. We saw him be so successful with Deshaun once Deshaun was drafted to the Texans, but even before then, he was with the Brian Hoyers of the world, the Ryan Malletts of the world, and he was still putting up the same type of numbers that he would continue to put up at the Texans and then further on with the Cardinals. Now, Davante Adams is a little bit younger than he is, right? But at the same time, we haven't seen Davante Adams be super successful outside of Aaron Rodgers. So to me, again, this is one of those ones where it's a little bit of pick your poison, but that tiebreaker, it's got to be the fact that we've seen DeAndre Hopkins be so successful with so many different types of quarterbacks.
Yeah, I'm 100% with Ben on this one. I think he lays out a great argument. You know, if you look at Aaron Rodgers, he makes a lot of receivers look really good, right? And that's not to say that Adams isn't great, because I've never seen Ocho Cinco cry over anybody else's route running the way that he did over Davante Adams. That was an interesting video if you haven't checked that out. But yeah, I mean, Hopkins has done it with so many different quarterbacks who are not good or really aren't starters in this league. Not only did he do it for different quarterbacks, but he's done it now for different systems and different teams. I mean, his greatness is transcendent no matter where he goes. So, yeah, Hopkins over Adams for me.
When I looked at this one, I really wanted to go with Davante Adams because he's a Bay Area guy. He grew up in Palo Alto, went to Palo Alto High School. Palo Alto High School. I remember watching him win the CIF California High School Championship when he was in high school. I really wanted to go with him, but for me, it goes to Hopkins. And Ben and Jay both. Jessie have both done a really good job of kind of nailing this one down. It's you're looking at that, and you're looking at with Hopkins, he's a guy that's done this for a long period of time with a lot of different receivers. He averages more than 15 over their careers. He averages 15 yards per game more than what Adams does. And on top of that, when Adams didn't have Rodgers for 9 games in 2017, he was under 1,000-yard receiver. He didn't even get to 900 yards. He was in the 800 and something. So this one has to go with Hopkins.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to be with everybody else, which I'm not too prone to doing, especially when Jesse's on the same side as me. But so the thing that was, out of all the questions that we're going through, this one to me was like the biggest chasm of all of them. Like, I know, Ben, you said that it's neck and neck. I don't think it's that close at all. And why I say that is, I mean, everything you guys have said, plus Davante Adams has only had one really good season, and this was this last season. The reason being that he's always injured, and he has a way better quarterback throwing to him than Hopkins has ever had. And, Deshaun Watson, obviously, we all agree is a great quarterback, but he's not Aaron Rodgers level. He's not in that, top 5, maybe top 10 of all time quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers is. And he still hasn't put up the numbers that, Hopkins has consistently. And then when you look at what you want out of a receiver, D-Hop is that guy that could go get you that first down with that, up and out play and just toe the sidelines, and just you could go bam, 10 yards, 10 yards, 10 yards, all the way down. Plus, he has the strength to go across the middle and has those hands that are just, if it's in his anywhere close to him, that's coming down with the ball. And I think Adams has similar qualities, but he's more of a finesse wide receiver to me. And Hopkins has that ability to be finesse, but also to be powerful. So when I'm comparing these two, not to downplay Adams, because I think he's a great quarterback, I just think Hopkins is on another level elite-wise. And you're seeing that from him having so much success, no matter what system he is, no matter what receivers are around him, no matter who's throwing him the ball, and he always stays healthy. So to me, it's not even a close conversation as far as who's the better receiver out of these two, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I also got to go with Hopkins, man. Hopkins has done it with guys like Brian Hoyer at quarterback. And Devontae Adams has Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. And even this year, DeAndre Hopkins has put up better numbers than Devontae Adams with Kyler Murray. Well, Devontae Adams has Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback. DeAndre Hopkins put up like 1,400 yards, while Devontae Adams only had like 1,300. So DeAndre Hopkins has played very high, consistent levels for many years with garbage quarterback. Without Aaron Rodgers, like you said, Suneil, Devontae Adams only put up like 900 yards, I think, that year without Aaron Rodgers. DeAndre Hopkins can do it with any quarterback under center, and DeAndre Hopkins has proven that he's easily the best receiver in the NFL right now. So I gotta go.
Didn't he have a season with 0 drops?
I think so. Yeah, he had one season. He had 0 drops.
That is unreal.
Unreal.
You don't see that from a receiver. You just don't.
Look, I'm not cool with all this me and Jesse being on the same side type of stuff. So let's go to that next topic.
Did we just become best friends?
No, never.
The next topic is Dak Prescott an elite quarterback.
No. Next question. No, I'm just kidding. So Dak Prescott to me is a great leader, but not an elite quarterback. And what I mean by that is he has leadership capabilities to be able to, bring a team together. He's going to be the face of your franchise. He does well in front of the camera, in front of the mics. But as far as just ability, I don't think he's elite. He puts up really great numbers against really bad defenses or in game time situations where it's like the prevent offenses and where like the game is already, out of hand. So it's just about grabbing, stats at that point. But if you look at the type of talent that he's been surrounded with in Dallas his whole career, to never really have any real success in the play going into the playoffs, to be kind of like a 500 quarterback for all that time with the weapons he has to throw to, with the running backs he has, with, the talent he has all on that offense. To me, you can't be elite and not be somebody that's a perennial playoff contender, Super Bowl contender, and that's just not him. So to me, no, he's not elite at all.
Yep, I'm gonna agree with what Suneil here again and say that that Dak Prescott is not an elite quarterback. He's very good. I just don't think he's at that elite level. We know that I put him. He's ahead of Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously, but there's a lot of similarities. Like what I wanted to say when I was going to say that he would be elite was that look at how well Dallas was with him compared to without him. But then at the same time, you say the same thing about the 49ers. And I just don't, with him, we haven't seen it progress into the playoffs. We haven't really seen him play at that kind of a high level in the playoffs. And once he gets to that point, then that's when we can start having him maybe in that conversation as being an elite quarterback.
Well, you know what they say, once is a fluke, twice is a coincidence. This is twice now, Suneil, and 3 times is a trend. Let's not get to number 3. But no, Dak is not an elite quarterback.
What are you doing, Jesse?
Thank you, Amin.
Dak is not an elite quarterback. There's probably, off the top of my head, 5 guys that are elite in this league to me. And I don't have Dak in my top 10. Dak is a very good quarterback. I wouldn't mind having Dak on my team, leading my team. To Suneil's point, he is a great leader. But as far as an elite quarterback, no, he's not there. Definitely not.
Yeah, to me, he's not an elite quarterback. And I think he's just outside of that tier of being elite. I think like Jesse perfectly mentioned, there's a tier of about 6-7 guys to me who I think are at the top of the top, and every single year they're either close to the playoffs or dragging their teams into the playoffs despite what the rest of the roster looks around them, and no matter who their coach is. And to me, Dak isn't that type of guy. He's not that type of guy to where I'm not going to say, oh, yeah, every single year his team is going to win 9-8 games, no question. To me, I think the floor of elite guys is about that Russell Wilson level. And, I mean, look at him. He's never had a below 500 season. So with Dak, I mean, you guys nailed it. The leadership stuff is great, right? But physically, he just can't do some of the stuff that the guys like the Rodgers, the Mahomes, the Allens of the world do. And because of that, I can't quite put him in that elite tier.
Yep, I gotta agree with all you guys. Dak Prescott's not elite. The man has an elite running back, and people say that Ezekiel is a top 10 running back, at least a top 10 running back. He has Amari Cooper. He has Michael Gallup, and this year CeeDee Lamb. I understand he got injured this year. But Dak Prescott can't do nothing in the playoffs. He makes it maybe to the divisional, and he loses in the divisional. And with all the talent around him, especially in that offense, and he still can at least make it to the NFC Championship game. And they, sneak into the playoffs every year. Either the Eagles sneak into the playoffs, or the Cowboys sneak into the playoffs. And like you said, Ben, I don't know if they're going to – I'm not confident as a Cowboys fan that Dak Prescott and the Cowboys are going to win 9-10 games in the regular season. I'm not confident in that. And as much talent as Dak has around him, he should be doing as good or even better than Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson does way better with less. So Dak Prescott is an elite quarterback in my opinion. If Russell Wilson can do more with the garbage O-line, with Chris Carson, who's in a bad running back, he's underrated running back. But with Russell Wilson has a horrible offensive line, and he still puts up better numbers, and he plays like an MVP caliber player the first half of the season, where Dak can't even do that, and Dak has all the weapons around him. Dak Prescott is an elite quarterback. He can't do stuff like Mahomes and Rodgers, and even Russell Wilson can. He can, and he has more talent around him than Russell Wilson, but he still can't. He doesn't play as good as those guys. So Dak Prescott is an elite quarterback. Moving on to the next topic is who is a better pass rusher, Nick Bosa or Myles Garrett?
Ooh. So, am I going first on this one?
Yes, sir.
I got to go with Myles Garrett. And to me, I think the thing that sets me over the edge with this specifically is that with Nick Bosa, I think if I were just drafting between these two guys, I would rather take Myles Garrett because I wouldn't be confident in Nick Bosa being on my team every single season. You don't know whether or not he's going to get hurt. We've seen all of his injury history in the past. With Myles Garrett, he's proven his ability to be an elite level pass rusher and a defensive player of the year type guy. Now, Nick Bosa has done that too in his rookie year, but at the same time, that's 1 year that he's proven that. I want to see him prove it beyond then. And I think, I would consider this more after seeing what Nick Bosa would do this season, but I'm just going to lean Myles Garrett because I've seen it more with him.
All right, yeah. Listen, I'm going to take this question at face value and nothing more. Pure pass rusher, I'm taking Nick Bosa. I think Nick Bosa wreaks havoc a lot more than Myles Garrett. If I'm talking about a player I would rather have, yeah, I'm taking Myles Garrett because he is healthier. He has proven it longer. But as a pure pass rusher, I don't know many guys that come out of college with that hand skill and the ability to get to a quarterback in a multitude of different ways. You look at guys that normally come out and they have one really good pass rush move. Bosa came out with 3 or 4. And most of the time, a guy can go a whole career. Amin just can't contain himself. A guy can go a whole career without developing more than one pass rush move and still be effective in the NFL. But Bosa does it all as a pass rusher. So at face value, I'm looking at the question. Nick Bosa is better than Myles Garrett as a pure pass rusher.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree with Jesse on this one. I'm going with because the way that the question is written here, the question's written as who is the better pass rusher. The better pass rusher is Myles Garrett. You guys need to stop. You're cracking me up, and I see the comment section too, so I've been trying to hold it in. But Myles Garrett's definitely the better of the pass rusher of the two. If you're asking me who the better player is overall, it's definitely not Nick Bosa. He's going to be better against the run and everything else. But based on the way that this question is written, Myles Garrett would be the better pass rusher of the two.
I have no idea what's going on. I must be missing the joke or whatever.
Grant's what's going on in the chat. He says, who wreaks more havoc than a man who wields a helmet as a weapon, Jesse?
Wow.
Nick Bosa is better than Garrett at rushing Mason Rudolph, though.
That is insane. So, Grant always coming in and stealing the show, my guy. So yeah, I'm gonna go anti Jessie on this and say, even though I love Nick Bosa, I'm gonna go Myles Garrett as well. And the reason for that is I think, we've only seen Nick Bosa play with an elite defensive line, right? So we've seen him, all of his stats, all of his numbers is with DeForest Buckner on one side and, Eric Armstead playing out of his mind. And, with that defense that was, one of the best defenses in the league at that time, top 2, I think, that year. So with Myles Garrett, he's always the center of attention on whatever defensive line he's on. So that means for him to get the type of results that he's getting, he's doing that against double teams. He's doing that against the defense gearing or the offensive line gearing their defense towards his side. And he's still a super productive player. And so to me, that just shows that he has elite ability to still be a highly productive defensive lineman when it comes to sacks and going up against, the best that the offensive line could give him. Now, obviously this last year, I know he had, some help with him, but for most of his career, he was the only guy that people were really fearful of on the defensive line. And he's, proven to be, worthy of his draft pick year after year. So I'm going with Myles Garrett.
Thank you, Suneil. Gosh, if that would have been 3 times,
I'm just
I would have
saying,
left the
man.
show. That would have been it. I'd have been out.
I mean, hey, you could be right. Even a broken clock is right 2 times, and you were right 2 times a day. So that was your 2 times when you agreed with me.
Yeah, I gotta go with Myles Garrett. If you're talking about pure pass rusher, yes, you could say Nick Bosa. But, I don't know how healthy Nick Bosa was. If I drafted Nick Bosa, I don't know if he would be healthy on my team and he would play every year consistently. Myles Garrett hasn't missed a year. He's played at least 5 or 10 plus more games, I think. He hasn't been injured that much. He at least plays 10 plus games every year. And he produces at least 10 plus sacks every season. Myles Garrett, he's consistent. And, if you're talking about a pure pass rusher, yes, we would say Nick Bosa. But Myles Garrett has had a bunch of since he came into the league, he has consistent years and he's healthy. And the best ability is availability. I agree with Suneil. The best ability is availability. And Myles Garrett is available, and he plays. Nick Bosa, we're basing Nick Bosa off 1 season that he played, and we don't know. He could come back off the ACL injury, and he could get injured again, or he could put up 3 sacks, or he could put up 10-plus sacks. So we don't know how good Nick Bosa is going to be next season. We at least know that we're going to expect at least 10-plus sacks from Myles Garrett next season, especially with Jadeveon Clowney on that defensive line. That's going to help him out a lot. So we're going to at least expect Myles Garrett to put up 10-plus sacks. Myles Garrett's consistent, and he's healthy, so I have to pick Myles Garrett.
Hey, you know what's crazy? Jessie is the king of the 49ers only pick unhealthy players and all this kind of stuff. And then he goes out in every single conversation we've had right now, he's picked the person that can't stay healthy as the better player. My God, man, the hypocrisy of this guy.
Hey, to be fair, Christian McCaffrey's had 1 season. That's not a trend for him. Okay, last season he wasn't healthy. That's not a trend. People can be unhealthy for a season. But yes, Bosa, the question was pass rusher, pure pass rusher. So chill out, Suneil. Chill out.
I'm just saying.
Keep this in the cage. This is football.
This is a cage. Awesome.
Now, I know people want to hear the next topic, which is really, really interesting. And I know we might spark some debates. But who is better, Brady or Montana?
Okay, so I think it's starting with me, right?
Yep.
So I know we with Brady and Montana. One thing that I think is difficult when it comes to quarterbacks that played in very different eras is just going off of stats isn't going to be the way to kind of judge the two, because obviously the eras are different. The eras that Tom Brady was playing in is a much different league than what Montana was playing in. So if you go by touchdowns and all this kind of stuff, yards, Brady's going to pretty much run away with it just because the game is more open. And the rules are geared towards more yards in offense and so on and so forth. With that being said, I think that Brady is a lot better than Joe Montana. And that's coming from a diehard 49ers fan. And there's two main reasons why I say that. So these guys have similar careers where they've had a lot of success with one team and then they moved on to another team. Okay, so with those two, Montana, won 4 Super Bowls with the 49ers, went to Kansas City, and was still, a decent player with them, took them to the playoffs. And I think they went to an AFC Championship game, if I'm not mistaken, but never took them over the hump. Tom Brady, on the other hand, won, the 6 Super Bowls with New England, then went to Tampa Bay and took them over the hump and got them to win a Super Bowl as well. So to me, that's already, puts him head over shoulders, over whatever the statement is, over Montana. The other thing is Tom Brady throws way less interceptions than Montana did in his career. And that is in a league where there's way more passes thrown and way better defensive backs than when Montana was playing. So for me, that just shows, he has more control of the ball. Throwing less interceptions means you're not losing the game for your team. And, to me, those are the two main reasons why I put Brady over Montana, no matter how hard it hurts my heart. Look, Grant, go back to Discord, my guy. What are you doing right here?
Head over shoulders. Real quick, so how many Super Bowls did Montana win?
4, right?
Okay, I wasn't sure if I heard that correctly. I thought you said less than 4. All right, so we got 4. No, we're good. We're good. But I completely disagree with you, and I like the fact that you brought up the fact that they're from different eras. Joe Montana is if Joe Montana played in the era that we're in now, he'd be putting up numbers above what Tom Brady is putting up. And the reason I say that is because Tom Brady's never going to get hit by Jim Burt. He's never going to get hit the way that Leonard Marshall hit Montana in that game in Candlestick. Those kind of hits just don't happen anymore. They've been taken out of the game. So from that perspective, that's part of why Brady's been around as long as he has. He's not getting hit the same as the quarterbacks used to get hit. On top of that, you're talking about the interceptions and things like that. And you're right. I mean, he does have a lot more interceptions, but the game was different also. Again, back then, it wasn't as open as it is now. Nowadays it's 7-on-7 with pass rushers, but it's they can't hit the quarterback below the waist. They can't do this. They can't do that. In the secondary, you can't really touch a receiver like they used to be able to do. I mean, if you had Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, John Taylor, and that whole crew playing right now in their prime, they'd be blowing everybody out, and they'd make the numbers that guys like Brady and so on are putting up. They'd make those things look silly. So, as a guy who grew up, I got to say, I grew up as a Joe Montana fan. He was my guy throughout. So for me, it's Montana. I really admire what Brady's done. I think when Brady won his 6th Super Bowl, it was when he had the comeback game against Atlanta. I may have even tweeted out at that point that he was the greatest of all time. That puts him above Joe. But the more and more I think about it, the more I really have to go back and say that I think it's Montana, and it's because of the one.
We call that a flip flopper.
Yes, I'm like a fish in a boat. It's you take them and you put you go. The other thing too, you got the Super Bowl wins. I think this last Super Bowl was probably the biggest win of any of those Super Bowls in Brady's career, and that's something that Montana did regularly. They blew him out year after year. The only game that was close was the Cincinnati game. The third one. So that's the other part of it too. He was dominating in the postseason, even more so than Brady's been.
Yeah, listen, if this was any other chat, I'd say Brady, but since Suneil said Brady, I have to go with the other side. So I'm going to take that argument. All right, so here's what I look at. When it comes down to winning Super Bowls, Tom Brady got his teams in positions to kick field goals. Joe Montana needed touchdowns. Joe Montana, by the way, is the only quarterback in NFL history. Look it up. I've done the research. I geeked out on this stuff when I was around your age, Amin. So these are things that have stuck in my memory banks. Joe Montana is the only quarterback to get better in every major statistical category when he goes from the regular season to the playoffs. And guess what? He gets even better when he goes from the playoffs to a Super Bowl. So the bigger the game is, the better he performs. And he's the only quarterback to do that of any of the greats, guys that have a large enough resume to actually look into a number being important. So, yeah, if I want a guy to lead my team and to win games, it's Joe Montana. Jack talked about a guy who got leveled. Well, how about his receivers? Yes, they passed a lot more, but the receivers themselves got mauled. They could get mugged anywhere down the field. The separation was not there. And a lot of people want to say, well, listen, he had Jerry Rice. He did, but he won 2 Super Bowls before Jerry Rice was even in the league. Joe Montana is the greatest quarterback of all time. And if you put him in the situations that Tom Brady was in, he's probably got 9 Super Bowls.
Whew, so I am gonna go.
Did he just say 9 Super Bowls?
He did
How
say
many times has Brady been there? 9 times? Yeah, he's 9-0.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, but I mean the same way Aaron Rodgers would be 8 Super Bowls with Bill Belichick. This is a dumb argument I hate. You know, people say, "Oh, you can say this and this."
Oh, dumb argument.
Wait,
All right, Ben. Those are fighting words right there.
He lost to the Giants twice, right? I think he lost to the Giants twice, and then he lost to the Eagles. So isn't that 10? Because he
Yeah,
has
10 times.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So he's got at least
Awesome.
9. Maybe he's 9-1.
Second time.
but I think my point is that just because, you know, I had this in my mind too for a while. I thought Aaron Rodgers was better than Brady because I look at the type of quarterback he is, right? And I look at all the types of things he can do. But the reason I'm going to go with Brady over Montana, it's because of 2 things specifically. It's for one, we've seen Tom Brady do it almost 20 years apart now. He won the Super Bowl in 2001, and then he just won it this past year. I mean, that's some Kareem Abdul-Jabbar type of stuff, right? I mean, that's crazy. But then the other thing for me, too, is with Tom Brady and those early Patriots teams, they ran the ball a lot. Those Patriots teams early on weren't like the Patriots teams that we saw in the mid-2010s and later on into Brady's career. What he had to do and the type of offense that he was running later on in his career was much different than what the early Patriots were doing. So to see Brady succeed in 2 different types of offense and 2 almost completely different eras, that pushes him over the edge for me. And then seeing how many times he's been to the Super Bowl and been in the playoffs, gosh, I can't go against Tom Brady for this one, even though I really, really want to.
Oh man, I used to like you too, but
Wow. Okay, Ben. I got you on this one, my guy.
Well, Jack, I guess
Listen.
you're not gonna like me either, because I'm gonna go with Brady.
oh,
I'm a Niner. I'm a diehard Niners fan, but I'm not gonna be biased and say Joe Montana. Brady to be 43 years old and put up 40 touchdowns and 12 interceptions at 43 years old and to play at a high level. I get that he had Mike Evans and those guys, but to still be that old and to play at a high level. And also, like here, Jesse, you said that Joe Montana had to score touchdowns and Brady had to score field goals. Well, then what happened in Super Bowl 51 where they played the Falcons and it was 28-3 and it was like almost the end of the 3rd quarter and Brady came back. Like nobody.
Kyle Shanahan happened. What are you talking about?
Wow.
Kyle Shanahan happened. That's what.
Yeah, well,
that's what
Brady
happened.
still had to score points, right? Brady still had to score those points and put the points on the board.
Tell him, Amin.
I like that,
Amin.
Amin.
I don't even if Kyle Shanahan, even if the Buccaneers, even if the Patriots got the ball back, if they didn't score, then what would be then we wouldn't be talking about the Super Bowl 51 as the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history. Joe Montana, like I watched like the Bengals games when he played the Bengals, and I watched back and looked at the highlights. It was like 2 or 3 minutes left, and he had to score a touchdown. Yeah, because he went up the field with Jerry Rice and he did those things. To be down 28-3 at the end of the 3rd quarter. And to come back and win that game, I don't think Joe Montana could do that. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think Joe Montana could do that. Be down 28-3 and come back with almost at the end of the 3rd quarter.
Joe Montana would never be down 28-3 in a Super Bowl.
Well, hold on a second. Hold on a second. I mean, you say that Joe Montana couldn't come back from 28 to 3 down. He came back from 35 to nothing. Was 35 to nothing down? I think it was to win a game, and he was down 35-0 at halftime, and he won the game 38-35.
Was that in the Super Bowl?
No.
Exactly.
Yo!
From the top rope.
Yo, Yo, you just need to bow out right now, Jack. You just need to bow out. And just to go with my youngins, because Suneil's for the kids. We out here really spitting facts to these old fogies, and I'm telling you right now, they're acting like Tom Brady has been playing only for the last 5-6 years. Like he was playing 20 years ago. The rules started just recently changing where they were really, protecting quarterbacks and really protecting where it was really hard for DBs and pass interference and all that kind of stuff. Tom Brady was still winning championships when you could jump all over a receiver and when you could hit a quarterback and all that kind of stuff. That just started happening recently in the last 5-10 years. Tom Brady was still going to Super Bowls, still winning Super Bowls. And I hate that I have to defend so fiercely Tom Brady over Joe Montana. But why are you guys even doing this right now to us, man? This is game over. I mean, from the top rope, elbow, Randy Savage style.
Well, yeah, and you're right, Suneil. I mean, the whole thing is Brady was the guy that actually got the rule change, right? Because Brady actually got hit for once and got hurt, and so that's what. And they're like, NFL's like, we can't have this happen. We've got to keep our quarterback safe. So I see your point there, but
Tuck rule,
Montana,
deflate gate.
Yep.
There is no blemishes on Montana's record.
That's because social media. That's because the media wasn't doing their jobs back then the same way they're doing their jobs right now. All those dudes were doing drugs and cocaine and all this kind of stuff. Nobody was talking about that back then. So of course there's no blemishes. Michael Jordan had no blemishes. We all know what came out after about Michael Jordan and all his blemishes and all that kind of stuff.
Joe Montana wears Skechers. He wasn't doing blow.
He wears Skechers now, my guy. I'm not saying, hey, Joe Montana's a clean dude, all that kind of stuff, but let's not act like they were living in the same media type situations where those little intricacies would be found. Come on, my dude. Come better if you're gonna come after me.
so Neil's getting so feisty his camera can't keep up with him.
Mean spitting facts. That's what I've been trying to write this whole time. I mean, spitting facts.
All right.
Friday night.
Mic drop. Next question. I mean, you took all these old dudes. They can't hang with you, youngin. He was bringing up Super Bowls. Y'all didn't even, he wasn't even born for those things that he was talking about. He was still swimming around in his dad at the time. Oh my God!
Whoa. Well, that's why he doesn't know how good Joe Montana was, Suneil. He just made my point.
This guy is
Woo!
Mean spitting facts. If you go against the dream, you will lose. Jack Hammer.
I gotta admit that going up against a mean had me a little concerned because I didn't want people to think I was taking advantage of the younger guy. But he's a tough one.
He knows his stuff. Listen, That's the thing about a mean is he comes very prepared. You cannot take him lightly. If you're coming on his show, you better know your stuff because he will pick you apart.
I didn't do any research for this. So I was just like,
that's what I'm saying.
This is
right.
style.
What the? Wow. Hey, you need to do some research, though. I mean, you got to put on Super Bowl 16. You got to put on Super Bowl 19, Super Bowl 23 and 24, and then come back.
Montana wasn't down 28-3 in the third quarter in any of the Super Bowls. I remember correctly. I know Joe Montana blew out teams in the Super Bowl, but I don't remember him being down 28-3 and then coming back.
Okay. Real quick, here's the one that if you can find it, that you need to watch if you want to talk about that. Find the 1983 NFC Championship game, 49ers versus Redskins in DC. 49ers down, I think they were down 21-0 at halftime. Maybe it was 20. I'm not sure exactly what it was.
They came back, right? They came back, or I don't remember. Yeah. They came back or they lost. I don't remember. By a field goal.
Yep, they did. They came back and tied it up, and then they had a couple of really bad defensive pass interference calls against them in the end. But I'm going to give you this one because that was a pretty fun conversation. You did really well there. I'm going to go lick my wounds.
There it is.
Okay, so the next, I was going to say if Peyton Manning's better than Joe Montana, but we already had the big argument about Brady and Montana. So let's switch it up a little bit. let's move on to corners, because I know this was a big debate. But before I was watching football, but I know this was a big debate. Like Sherman will go on the streets of, I think New Orleans, he'd be like, "Who's better, me or Revis?" So let's get who's better, Sherman or Revis?
Ooh, wow, that went off the rails pretty quick. Gosh, I you know, just doing just doing my research before this. I think I'm gonna go with Darrelle Revis, and to me, I think it's because of when you look at the two players and you look what they were asked to do and what they accomplished. Darrelle Revis was asked to do harder things on the field than I think Richard Sherman was. And you saw with Darrelle Revis, he would move all over the field. He would follow receivers. He would shadow guys. You know, they call it Revis Island for a reason. So to me, I got to go with Revis because he played a harder role than Sherman played. And with Darrelle Revis, I mean, how many times have we seen him shut down a number one receiver? Like no question, right? So I got to go with him for that reason.
Hey, Amin, let me ask you, because we're obviously not going to talk about it, but I want to know where your head's at. Who is better, Peyton Manning or Montana? We won't turn into a big thing. I just want to know where your head's at.
Manning. I mean, I'm not Manning. I mean Montana.
Okay.
Montana has the rings. Manning doesn't have the rings.
Okay.
Like you could put you. That's the thing, right? Like sometimes I argue with. Okay, I'm gonna go briefly into it because sometimes I argue with my cousin, is Peyton Manning better than Montana? And I say no, because Montana has the rings. And Manning went to 4 Super Bowls, but he got blown out, one of the biggest losses in Super Bowl history. And also, he only won 2 of them. Like, you could put Dan Marino as the greatest quarterback, but he doesn't have any of the rings. So, Montana has the rings, so you put him in that GOAT conversation.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure that your head was in the right place. All right. So, Revis and Sherman. Listen, we just did our top 10 cornerbacks over on my channel this week, and I had Revis number 8. Sherman wasn't in my top 10. Revis is certainly the better corner. You're talking about a guy that played man press, traveled anywhere on the field. If your best guy is lining up in the slot, he's playing nickel. If he's lining up left side or right side, he's traveling with them. So, yeah, I think Revis, to me, is the better corner. Sherman's great. Maybe, just outside the top 10 all time. For sure, top 15 of all time, but Revis number 8 for me, so Revis I have higher than Sherman.
All right, I'm going to mix it up a little bit here. I'm going to go ahead and go with Richard Sherman. I've been kind of going back and forth because this is a tough one, but I'm going to say Sherman on this one, and really because Ben and Jessie said that it was the other way around. So I'm going to go ahead with Richard Sherman here. The thing is they're close, right? I understand the whole traveling deal, and they're more man press and so on and so forth. Revis also has one more all-pro to his name than Sherman does as well. But the cool part about Sherman, the good thing with Sherman is that he does have more interceptions. He has 36 interceptions over his career, which is 7 more than Revis was able to put together. And what he's asked to do is extremely, it's difficult in its own right. I understand what he's doing, but he plays it really well, and he plays the defensive back like a wide receiver at times, which he did in college. So I'm going to go ahead and go with old man Sherman here on this one.
Uncle
Weak
Sherman.
argument, my guy. Weak argument, my guy. But I know.
Hey, all of you guys are going to say the same thing. Someone's got to change it up. Somebody's got to go out on a limb over here.
We're trying to do it for entertainment purposes, but so Richard Sherman is a great soundbite and a great cornerback, but he can only be great if the circumstances around him are good. He played in that zone scheme, and whenever it was man to man, there was a weakness there, and we've seen it. We obviously saw it in the 49ers, but even with the Seahawks in their prime, he wasn't really asked to do man-to-man coverage. They had a great linebacking core, and they were able to play the zone read defense or whatever they called it out in Seattle. So, but with Revis, there was, like Ben said, Revis Island. This dude was man-to-man on your best receiver, and you threw away from him. I remember a few seasons, he was the lowest amount of attempts went his direction year after year after year because quarterbacks were just afraid to throw it in his direction. And even then, he was still very productive as far as getting interceptions, tackles, breakups, so on and so forth, even though he had less opportunities than other corners playing the same position. So for me, it's not even close. The arguments over the internet between these two are, more competitive than if you actually just go off of how they play. So to me, it's unfortunately I got to go with Jessie again, which is okay because he's right on this one. So we're going Revis. And just in case you wanted to know, I was gonna say Montana over Peyton Manning as well, because I know you care about my opinion as well, Jessie.
Yeah, I actually did. Sorry, I forgot to ask.
Richard Sherman did have more interceptions. He had 35 interceptions, while Revis only had 28. But the only reason I don't really care how much interceptions a cornerback has is because that's just based off how much they target a cornerback and how much they don't target a cornerback. Revis is a better cornerback. He would lock down your best guys. He just would. He would lock down your best guys. Sherman is good, but Revis would lock down your best guys. And Sherman, some games, the Legion of Boom did get killed. Some games they did pretty bad. So Revis is easily the better quarterback. Better cornerback. He locked down your best guy. What more do you want from a cornerback? And I know he had less interceptions because he didn't get targeted as much. You can make that argument that, Sherman has more interceptions, but he didn't get targeted as much as Sherman did. So interceptions, you can't really play interceptions into cornerbacks. You could, but the thing about interceptions based off a cornerback is that it's based off how much they get targeted, right? Richard Sherman gets targeted more than Revis, so that's why Revis has less interceptions than him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, that's a really good point. That's one of the things that I talked about a lot last year when everybody was talking up Richard Sherman and his numbers, was the fact that people just weren't throwing at him. That's why we didn't see a whole lot of why his numbers look so good, because he wasn't getting targeted. So no, you're on the right track. You guys are all correct. I'm gonna.
This might be a time for your internet to cut out again, Jack.
His internet cutting out. Right.
So moving on to the next topic, because Fred Warner had an amazing year this year, and people argue that he's the best linebacker in the league. So NFC West matchup, who is a better linebacker, Warner or Wagner? Just off this season. Because I know if we're talking about entire career, we would say Wagner, because Wagner has played a very high level for a long time. But if we're just basing it off this year, who is a better linebacker?
Oh, so that changes things. Go ahead, Ben. Gives me time.
I think Suneil, I was going to say that kind of changes things for me too, because I think where I was leaning with this is I honestly don't think I know the answer to this question. I mean, both these guys were both all pro this past year. They're both playing at such a high elite level. So to me, going into this, I think what I was going to end up saying was we've seen Warner and Wagner do it at a very similar level recently, but Wagner's done it for longer, right? So that's where I was going to lean with this argument. But if you're going to push me down to one guy, I think I would still prefer Bobby Wagner. And I think while what Fred Warner does fits the modern NFL better than what Bobby Wagner does, Bobby Wagner, I mean, he still had more tackles this past season than Fred Warner has, and he's had triple-digit tackles every single season he's been in the NFL. I mean, this guy, he does everything for Seattle, and he's the only reason that that defense was even semi-competent. If you look across the board at the rest of that defense, they just aren't what they were a few years ago. So to me, I'll go with Wagner, but I think I could be persuaded either way with this argument, and I don't feel great falling on the sword of either or falling on either side of this argument.
Yeah, here's what I'll say. The two things that make Wagner so great are his leadership and the way that he plays instinctually. But if you look at Warner, he does the exact same things. Great leader, great instincts, and what sets him apart here for me and gives him the edge is his ability to play the pass coverage. How many guys can have an elite receiver behind him and get the right zone drops while still keeping an eye on a quarterback and make a play? There's not many in NFL history, and Warner is certainly one of those guys. I believe that Warner planted his flag as the best linebacker in the game this last season. He's only trending up. Wagner is trending down. So for me, I'm going to go Warner.
Yeah, for me, Fred Warner is the better of the two, especially at this point in their career. Wagner was Warner is right now where Wagner was a few years ago. It seems like over the last couple of years, you've seen Wagner start to kind of slow down a little bit. He's not quite the same guy that he was in pass coverage. He's still very good, but he's just not quite at that same level. And Warner's on the upswing, and we've seen him just take guys away across. You can't just he just covers everybody, and you throw in the ability to tackle as well. He's a third tackler as well, and it goes with Fred Warner. A little bit of homer on that one, but he's better overall.
Yeah, so that curveball you threw at the last second, really changes the answer to this question, because it's kind of unfair to put Warner and Wagner this year, because obviously Warner is, ascending and Wagner is, on his decline. So if we're taking from this point on, of course I'm taking Fred Warner. He's elite for all the reasons why everybody said, especially in how the league is right now. Having your middle linebacker be able to cover the way that Warner could cover is just an elite luxury to have, and obviously Warner has that at an elite level. However, as far as just overall, middle linebacker back in the day when Wagner was being elite, I think he can actually do more what a middle linebacker needs in the previous decade than Warner can, because one thing that Wagner, I think, does better is wreak havoc in the backfield. He can be, a guy that rushes the quarterback. He can be somebody that, makes tackles for loss, behind the line of scrimmage. But that also was because the way that his scheme, the defense that he was playing, they utilized him in that way, where with Warner, they utilize him more in coverage, and he's elite there. So the way you asked the question, I'm going with Warner. But overall right now, as far as like if it was a different decade, I would still say Wagner.
Yeah, but I got to go with Warner this season. Both of those guys played incredibly well this season. Wagner, like you said, decreased his productivity this year, and Warner increased his productivity this year. But the thing about Warner is that, like, I'll watch the Niners game because that defense, Nick Bosa's gone, Eric Armstead isn't doing that well, and Fred Warner's making all the tackles, making all the plays, and I'm just like, man, that's incredible. Like, Fred Warner makes all the plays on the field, especially while all those guys like Nick Bosa and they were injured. Fred Warner was playing at a high level, and he would pretty much make all the plays on the defense. Fred Warner this year, if I was talking this year, yes, Fred Warner is a better linebacker. If I was talking about in their careers, obviously Wagner. But if I'm basing it off this year, it's got to be Warner. So I know, Jack, you have to go. So
No, I'm good.
I know you have to go. I know you have to go, Jack. So let's get to the Peyton Manning. Who's better, Peyton Manning or Joe Montana topic? Let Jack start this one off.
Well, it's Joe. If we want to go back to that one, it's going to be Joe Montana. Joe Montana is better than Manning. It's just he just had a better career. Manning, he struggled at times. I get, the thing is they both had to go up against Bill Belichick as well, correct? So that's an interesting piece of that. I didn't check to see what their records were against those defenses. But that's one of the reasons why Manning doesn't have the Super Bowls that Montana or Brady does. That's one of the reasons why we were talking about that Brady debate a few minutes ago. Brady has all those is because he's had Bill Belichick on his side throughout his career. So for me, it's Montana over Manning, just based off of his play in the biggest games was always at the top level.
Yeah, because Bill Walsh is a terrible coach, man. All those Super Bowls that Joe Montana carried Bill Walsh's offense.
You're such a
Well, to touch on that, no, you're right. I mean, the thing was, to win the Super Bowl, and that's part of the argument here, is to win the Super Bowl, it doesn't matter who the quarterback, and the quarterback obviously matters, but there's not many quarterbacks that have won Super Bowls when their defenses have stunk, right? If you're a young quarterback and you go back to Brady's first Super Bowl, there's no way in heck that Brady wins that Super Bowl if he doesn't have Bill Belichick on the sideline holding the Rams, who were the greatest show on turf, to only 17 points. That's part of it there, right? Whereas Montana took, Montana was on the off. That's the other side of the ball. And the 49ers had good defenses. I mean, heck, if you go back and you look at the years they won the Super Bowl, you look at their glory years, those defenses were top 5 defenses throughout the league. And those defensive, look at the guys that were on the defensive staff as well with the 49ers back then. And those were really good coaches. George Seifert, he had a heck of a career when he was with the 49ers when he took over for Bill Walsh. Ray Rhodes was a defensive backs coach at one point, and he went on and had a good career with Philadelphia. So, yeah, I hear what you're saying, Suneil. You're right. That he had Bill Walsh on his side. That definitely helped him. He had a great defense behind him as well. And Manning didn't have the defense all the time. He was having to carry it. And that's the same argument that you can make if we change this argument to John Elway versus Joe Montana, we're having that same argument because John Elway had to carry the Broncos throughout his career up until the time that Mike Shanahan got there and said, okay, we're going to run the ball and we're going to run it a lot. And then at that point, all of a sudden they won 2 Super Bowls. So, yeah, I'm still going to go with Montana because that's my guy. But
yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, I think that I said it earlier. If I have Montana ahead of Brady, then I definitely have Montana ahead of Manning. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna add too much to this too. I think Joe Montana is the second greatest quarterback ever, and Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. So that's the end of the conversation for me.
Yeah, and I mean, even though I was giving Jack a hard time, I'm right on the same side. Montana is clearly better than Manning, and one of the things that really stands out, between Brady and Montana. The interceptions were, consistently Brady was, throwing far less interceptions than Montana. But when you put Montana versus Manning, their interceptions were very similar. And to be playing in a league where it's so quarterback friendly, like Manning was, to still have that many turnovers, to me just shows, if Montana was in the same, offense, had the same, rules that he was playing with, I think his stats would be far better than, Peyton Manning.
Manning does have an impressive resume. 5-time MVP. He has an impressive resume. But the thing is, I wouldn't personally put Tom Brady as the GOAT if he only had 2 Super Bowl wins and he put up the same numbers as Manning. I wouldn't put Tom Brady as the GOAT over Joe Montana if he only won 2 Super Bowls. Manning only won 2 Super Bowls. Joe Montana has won 5, I think, right? 5 Super Bowls? 5 or 4? 4 Super Bowls. He has 4 Super Bowls. And in Super Bowls, though Tom Brady is considered the GOAT because he has those rings. He has 7 rings, which is really hard to do. And before Tom Brady was the GOAT, it was Montana. Montana was the GOAT. Montana is the second best quarterback. And he was the GOAT before Brady played and before he won all the Super Bowls. So why isn't Montana the second greatest quarterback of all time? The only reason I brought up this topic was because some people say that Peyton Manning is better than Joe Montana, but I just don't agree with that because rings matter in the league, and I get that Peyton Manning has 5-time MVP, but Joe Montana has the rings to back it up, and that in the end, that's what matters, the rings.
Let me throw one more at you guys real quick, and since we're talking about rings, right? How about Terry Bradshaw? Where does he fall in? Because he's got 4 Super Bowl rings, and so on and so forth. And he played some really tough Super Bowls along the way to win those to get there. So where does he fall? Because those teams were dominant during that era.
He's not top 10. He's not top 15.
Weren't there like 7 teams in the league back then? I mean, I think wasn't that like that? There was like, did they actually use the pigskin helmets back then and all that kind of stuff?
It was only the 70s.
Suneil bringing the stand-up comedy.
No, I mean that's a good point because obviously rings. Terry Bradshaw has 4 rings, but he's never in the conversation as one of the elite quarterbacks. And I think a lot of that has to do with the talent back then, the way the game was played. Were the games even on television back then? I don't know, but like it was a different era, And I think, Montana was in that era where offenses started. And I think a lot of that had to do with Bill Walsh, that, he really changed the way offense was played, with the West Coast offense. And I think Montana benefited from that, much like, how Brady benefited from Belichick really changing the way teams were run, defenses were done, and so on and so forth. So, I'm going to go with I don't even know what the question was, but Bradshaw isn't, in my top 10 quarterbacks.
No, it wasn't really. I was just when we're talking about all the rings and stuff, and then you look at Bradshaw. I wouldn't put Bradshaw up there either, and that's part of why I asked the question because we just keep, and I'm guilty of it too with throwing out the ring portion of it. But the thing that's interesting about Bradshaw is when you think of Bradshaw and you think of that era of the Steelers and you think about the offense, you think about the wide receivers though too, right? I mean, you've got the running game and Franco Harris, but you've also think about John Stallworth and you think about what's the other guy's name right now, number 88, Lynn Stallworth. Stallworth. Those guys were amazing receivers, and who was getting them the ball? I mean, that's probably why everybody thinks they're so amazing, right? Because Bradshaw was just throwing the ball up, then those guys were making crazy catches.
I think it's a great point, Jack, because it's funny. The ring argument makes sense until it doesn't support your overall argument, right? Like Brady or Bradshaw isn't in anybody's top 10, but Brady's the GOAT because he has the most rings. People want to bring up Jordan is better than LeBron because he has more rings. Well, what about Russell? Well, Russell doesn't count. So it's like you got to have some consistency. If you look at it the way that I talk about who the best NBA players are, I don't talk about who has the most rings. That's a tiebreaker if two players are even. But in this scenario, Bradshaw is not even skill-wise with any of these guys. And so if he was, the tiebreaker would be the rings. But in this scenario, it just doesn't fit. But if it doesn't fit the narrative, well, then, we'll just brush that aside a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's the same sort of conversation people are going to be having with Eli Manning. I think he's going to be one of the more interesting Hall of Fame cases because he's a guy who won 2 Super Bowls against the greatest of all time, right? But at the same time, was probably never a top 5, top 10 quarterback truly in the NFL. So, yeah, it's super interesting to think about the argument from that standpoint, definitely.
Hold up. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Amin.
I have a counter argument for Ben that you said that the Eli Manning thing would be hard for the Hall of Fame because he did have two Super Bowl rings and he beat the GOAT, Tom Brady. But then couldn't you put Nick Foles also in the Hall of Fame because he beat the GOAT?
Yeah, but he doesn't have the Manning last name, so he's getting in the Hall of Fame regardless.
I mean, since you got me earlier, how many rings does Nick Foles have compared to Eli Manning?
Eli Manning has 2, while Nick Foles only has 1.
Okay, thank you.
But look, the ring argument.
Yeah, they still beat the GOAT, right? Both of them still beat the GOAT.
You're right. You're right. And Eli Manning, if you look at his overall career record, I think it's really close to 500 as well. So it'll be interesting.
It's like dead even.
I think I think the ring argument, like Jesse brought up, it only doesn't work when the game was like completely different. So like Bill Russell winning 10 rings, 11 rings, whatever he was 6'8" or whatever, and the tallest dude on the court at all times. You know what I mean? Or 6'9" or something like that. It wasn't playing the type of athletes that Jordan was playing, LeBron was playing, Kobe was playing. It wasn't the same league, much like Terry Bradshaw in the 70s was playing a much different sport than Montana, Brady, and so on and so forth. So that you still got to give Russell and Bradshaw the respect because in that time frame, in that era, they were elite enough to be winners the way that they're winners. So give them that credit. But I think there's a lot to be said about when the games are played and how the game was played and who was around them as far as, talented coaches and all that kind of stuff, I think is important to come in. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, on the other hand, is somebody that always gets slighted, who was in, all that modern era. But, we don't want to get too political as far as
I want to be clear. I'm not making the Russell argument, but you're not going to slight that era, not on my watch, because I have Wilt Chamberlain as the greatest basketball player of all time, and that's a whole different conversation we can have at some point. But that era, just so you know, I've gone back and done the research. The average height for every position back then is actually as tall or taller than the players now, and even in through the 90s. So that whole everybody was 6'5" and 6'6", no, that's just not true.
I mean, there were also 8 teams, but
Yeah. Really quick on
I
the.
want to hear that Will Chamberlain thing later, Jesse. I want to hear that Will Chamberlain explanation later. But
I'll give it to you.
Better than Wilt Chamberlain.
I want to go back to the ring discussion and the greatest of all time based on the rings. Now Manning Brady has 6, correct?
7.
Oh, so Brady has 7. Oh, okay. So Brady has 7 and Jordan has 6. And then if J-Lo gets engaged one more time, she has 7 too, right? She ties Brady. Is that how it works?
She's the greatest fiance of all time, bro.
I think so.
All right.
All right,
Isn't that like
topic,
clear?
right?
Who's a better fiance than J-Lo? J-Lo is the greatest fiance of all time. There's no debate. No debate.
moving on to the
Come on, Abe, help us out here.
the last topic of the day, because I know we're all getting tired. I'm also getting tired. I want to go do some other stuff right now. So moving on to the last topic of the day. Who is a better receiver between DK Metcalf and AJ Brown? Not Antonio Brown, not Hollywood Brown. AJ.
Not Tim Brown.
Oh man.
Who's up? Is it Suneil or Ben?
Let Jesse go first. He hasn't gone first all day.
All right, I'll go first. AJ Brown's a better receiver. So you look at 2 guys that played together in college. If you just take the last 4 years, I get they've only had 2 years in the NFL, but if you look at the last 4 years, AJ Brown has eclipsed 1,000 yards every single one of those years, while Metcalf's only done it one time. AJ Brown and Metcalf were on the same team just 2 short years ago, and Metcalf was getting half the yards that AJ Brown was getting, and AJ Brown was drawing the number 1 corner every single time out. He is a more polished receiver. Metcalf is an athletically gifted. He's a freak athletically, but AJ Brown's a bit of a freak athletically too. He's a more precise route runner. He's just a better overall player. He's had to play with Tannehill while DK is playing with Wilson. To me, AJ Brown is definitely the better receiver.
Jesse, wait, I would like to say something first. Like even the stats, right? Like longest catch in both of those guys' careers. While AJ Brown has 91, while DK only has 62 yards. Receptions per game, AJ Brown has 4.4, while DK has 4.1. Receiving yards per game, even like AJ Brown has 70.9, while DK only has 68.6 with 68.8. So even though Ryan Tannehill's AJ Brown's quarterback, while DK Metcalf, like you said, has Russell Wilson at quarterback, and AJ Brown is still putting better numbers up per game. Longest catch is better. Receiving yards per game, receptions per game. So AJ Brown is doing it with Ryan Tannehill as quarterback, while DK Metcalf is not doing as good with Russell Wilson, who easily is going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback one day.
Yep.
But to be honest, I bet you AJ Brown has more attempts to him than DK Metcalf per game.
So I looked this up. No. Suneil, guess what? AJ
Not
Brown.
so fast, my friend.
They have similar stats. AJ Brown has 40 less targets than DK Metcalf does, and they've been playing in the league for the same amount of time. I was about to bring this up for my argument. I'm glad you brought it up. You know, I was going to sit back and wait my turn, but if you're going to bring it up that way, they got similar stats. And, I mean, AJ Brown, 40 less targets. They're playing with 2 completely different level of quarterbacks, too. Let's be real. Ryan Tannehill is a tier 2, tier 3 type of guy. And Russell Wilson, I mean, we talked about this already. He's an elite quarterback. So, yeah, I'm sorry, Suneil, but like AJ Brown, 40 less targets. I mean, come on. To me, that when I was looking over this argument, that's what set it over the bar for me. I was looking at these guys, right? And that number stuck out to me. So, yeah.
Suneil, do you hear that?
Suneil.
Hold on. Do you hear it? That's the mic dropping.
Woo! But here's the thing. I was going to pick AJ Brown over Metcalf as well, and I had my another reason. So my reason, obviously you guys already did quarterback comparison. Ben, great job with attempts. Amin, great job with obviously all the stats showing AJ Brown actually has better stats than DK Metcalf. And then the one thing that I'm going to add is DK Metcalf isn't even necessarily the number 1 option on his team, right? He had who's the I forget. I'm blanking on the Seattle Lockett. Lockett was, the number one receiver his first year in the league, and even last year put up quite similar numbers as DK Metcalf. Whereas AJ Brown has always been the number one option. So him being the number one option with a lower caliber quarterback going up against CB1 is and still putting up better numbers. To me, it's hands down. AJ Brown is, the better receiver. He's the guy that I would want. DK Metcalf is a great receiver, but he just has everything going for him as far as great situation, great quarterback, other options. Whereas who's the other option that, is on AJ Brown's team? Not to mention they're a run first team.
Yeah,
they also have a running back. They also have the running back that ran for 2,000 yards. So for him still to be able to get the numbers that he's getting and the production that he's getting on a team that runs first, just shows the elite caliber of AJ Brown.
Yep. So that basically wraps up our show. We had a bunch.
I didn't get to go, Suneil. Or I didn't get to go. I didn't get to go. You guys skipped me.
My bad. We're not done yet. Jack Hammer has to go.
I'm gonna say that Eric Metcalf was a better punt returner than Tim Brown. That was the question, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're right, Jack. You're absolutely right.
No, everybody's got that's one right. AJ Brown, obviously, over DK Metcalf, for sure. I'm sorry, for interrupting you.
It's all good. Yep. So that basically wraps up the show. If Jack Hammer is done, that was pretty quick. But that basically wraps up our show. Go check out Ben Meyerson's channel. Link is in the description. He's been posting a lot more content. Go check out his Analytics episodes. Go check out Jessie Naylor's channel, Last Second Sports. They did a cornerback list this week. They did an interview with Coach McAvoy. You definitely want to check that out. You don't want to miss that. And go check out So Real Suneil's podcast, Men on the Internet.
And I have a channel too. And I have a YouTube channel. Abid is mad about that whole, Joe Montana, Tom Brady argument.
Oh, he's taking it out on you, Jack.
No prisoners.
And also go check out Jack Hammer. Check out Jack Hammer's channel. The link is in the description.
Oh man, hey, this is the best show I've ever been on. I want to be on this channel all the time. Grant doesn't want me on his channel no more. That's fine. I'm a forever Amin the Dream channel fan from this point on.
This is so much fun.
For Ben's channel, Jesse's channel, Jack's channel, and the Twitter link is in for Suneil's Twitter. Go check them out. Go follow them. Go subscribe to them. And that basically wraps up our show. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.